So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to bring on my next guest, who has just said he's got the sunbeds out, ready to take advantage of the weather that we've got. Let's say hello to Mr. Tony Christie. How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah.
It's great to have you on the show. It really is. I mean, you're celebrating 6 decades in the music industry, which is just incredible. But I wanted to go back to the beginning for you, really, which is where your love and your passion for music, where did that actually come from?
How far back do you want to go?
Right to the beginning.
When I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long story. It goes back to when I was a little lad. When my dad was when he came out of the RAF, we had a piano in the house, and he used to sit in the piano in the lounge and played it. He used to put me on a stool, and I used to sing when he played. And my grandparents came over from Ireland. When they came over, they used to sit there, and he used to stand me on a little stool, play the piano when I sang, and they used to give me a threepenny bit or a sixpence. So that's how I realized that I could make a living at this.
That's incredible.
That's carried on.
Because am I right in thinking, to start with, you were kind of torn between being an accountant and working in the music industry?
Yeah, well, I wasn't. My dad was. You see, my dad was an accountant. He was a very clever man. But my worst subject at school was maths. I was useless. My dad insisted. He says, "I want you to be an accountant like me." Sent me to night schools, and he got me. I got a job in the steelworks, in the wages department. That was I was an office. I worked in the office, the wages department. I hated it. Couldn't wait. The first opportunity I was offered to get out and go on the road and work as a professional singer, I took it. That was it.
And then, as they say, the rest is history, because I mean, now 6 decades later, and so much success. But when you look back at your career so far, what do you consider to be your big break? The moment where you kind of sat back and felt, actually my hard work's been recognized now.
It took a long time. It was a long build from the 60s onwards. I'm going through it from double acts to single act to being in different bands. Then when I turned pro, it was with a pro band, which was early 60s. And it sort of, it sort of grew from that, and then started making records. I think I made my first record I think it was 1967. I did a song called "Turn Around," which was written by Les Reed, who was a very, very lot of big hits he wrote. And I got a lot of radio play on it. I couldn't get any TV on it because it was also covered by, I don't know if you remember this. Can you remember a singer called Kathy Kirby?
Yes.
She recorded it as well. Now she got all the TVs with it because she was a girl, and I got all the radio plays. And actually, one killed the other. He got lots of radio plays, and she got lots of TV plays. But it never sort of made it. It's one of those things.
I mean,
that was a start. He carried on from there.
I was going to say, when you look back kind of at the music industry back in the 60s and the 70s compared to now, it was much more difficult to sell a record. You had to physically go out into a store and buy the record. So talking of your,
you did,
your first chart success.
The old days, yeah. I think it's popping back. A lot of people now, they want to. It was nice when you used to buy an album, you used to buy it and look at it and read it, didn't you? Turn it over and look and who was on it, who were the musicians, that the stories about the songs. And I think people miss. I certainly do. I think it's when you buy an album, if you've got it on a tape and you bang it in the car, you know nothing about it really.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. But talking of your first, one of your first chart successes with, of course, Las Vegas. Do you remember that feeling of, wow, finally I'm in the charts in the UK. My work's being paid off.
Yeah.
That must have been such a surreal moment for you.
But it took so long, you know, 71 when that came out. And it sort of somebody said, you're not very excited about it. I said, but it's taken me so long to get here. It's taken sort of 10 years to to get me in the charts. And I'm sort of I couldn't take it. I thought, what the hell's happening? And then suddenly the songwriters that wrote that song for me, they said, oh, we've got another song for you, which was I Did What I Did for Maria, which became an even bigger hit. That was, that was a really big hit. In fact, it was sitting at number 2 in the charts. It was my wife was expecting our second baby, and we actually named our second baby when she came after the song, because the song was I Did What I Did for Maria, so we called our daughter Antonia Maria after the song.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, but it was kept off. I can't think of the name of it was kept off the charts by a song which I'm not going to say.
But
kept off number 1 by I don't know.
But do you know, when one of your tracks, of course, that it's just become so iconic. It doesn't matter what age you are, you know the song, and that's, of course, Is This the Way to Amarillo? Now, one thing I wanted to speak to you about is, obviously we look back now, it's just an iconic track. But did you ever anticipate that the song would be as iconic as it has now become?
I did. The minute my manager Harvey went over to New York to meet Neil Sedaka, and which, I mean, we say Sedaka, he goes mad at Neil because he became a friend of my wife and myself, and he says it's Sedaka.
Okay.
I said Sedaka. No, it's Sedaka. Yeah, okay. So anyway, he brought the song back for me. Sedaka recorded that song and Solitaire. And he says, my manager brought the 2 songs back with him. And I said, oh God, that Solitaire is a brilliant song. I recorded the 2 songs together in the same session. Amarillo, I thought, well, that's a hit anyway, but I tried to persuade my record label to put Solitaire out as a follow-up single, and they wouldn't. They said, no, it's a ballad. No, you've just had your third big hit with with up-tempo songs. So they wouldn't put it out. And Solitaire, I said, okay. So it went on my first album. And I'm still very sad about that, because I thought that was going to be, I would have, I think Andy Williams recorded it about a year later, and I had a big hit with it. So yeah, it's one of those things. One of those things in life happens several times.
Wow, I mean, it did catapult you to a new level of stardom, that song. And what I found really kind of special was when the song was reintroduced to a complete new audience in 2005, when the brilliant Peter Kay and yourself re-released the track, and it just gave the song a whole new meaning. It was fun. People really got behind it. People that weren't born when it was originally released fell in love with the song. So what was that like for you to have a hit back in the, in the 70s with that, and then suddenly it's released?
Yeah, it was an absolute shock, because at the time I was my wife and I were living in Spain. We'd lived there for 15 years, and because I was so busy around the rest of the world and nothing was happening in the UK. And my son rang me and says, the record label want to put a best of album out, but they want you to come over and do a tour. And if you do that to promote it, they will TV advertise it and guarantee it'll be a top 10 hit. So I said, if they do that, I will come over and do the tour. So, which I did. And halfway through the tour, I got a phone call from Peter Kay saying, I want to use Amarillo, and I'm doing a comic relief video, and I'm going to use Amarillo on it. He says, and would you like to be on the video? I said, of course I would. So I think I was working in a theatre in York that particular night. He says, well, we're filming tomorrow morning in London. So I had to get an early train down London and do it. And he said, I got this beautiful Savile Row suit, which was like $3,000 at the time. I thought, I'm going to look good on this. And I got there and I said, look at this suit. He said, no, I want you to wear this. And he held up this suit. I mean, he's like 3 stone heavier than me. And he says, I want you to wear this. He says, it's my suit. He says, and it was that horrible color. I said, well, it's too big for me. He says, yeah, but it's a comedy. It's a comedy tape we're doing. Oh, okay. I put the trousers on. They fell down. And they had to put a belt on me or something to keep them up, and then put things down the back of the suit because it didn't fit me and all that. Anyway, we did one take, and which I thought was a rehearsal, and it wasn't. They did the one take, and they said, "Thank you," and I said, "Is that it?" Yes. So I had to then leave and get a train and go to my next gig on the road. And then by the weekend, by this time my album was #1 in the charts, being because it was to be advertised. And suddenly, by 3 days later, Amarillo was #1 in the charts as well. So 15 years away from the UK, doing very well around the rest of the world, but not over here. And suddenly I've got a #1 album and #1 single. So that really got me back to the UK. So my wife and I moved back in 2005, and we've been here ever since.
I mean, for you, what is that like? Because, like you said, you've had a really successful career around Europe, but in the UK, especially during the 80s and 90s, not as much success as you did. But then to suddenly come back on a level, like you said, #1 album, #1 in the charts, all over the TV channels. That must have been a moment where you sat back and felt kind of, wow, what a great kind of thing, because that it just happened straight away, almost overnight.
It did, yeah, it did, and as you say, it was shattering for me because having done nothing for sort of 15 years, I did have a chart hit of success with what was that song I did with Pulp?
Jarvis Cocker, was it
Jarvis
19?
Cocker. Jarvis Cocker, yeah, he wrote me a song, which I did. I flew back and did it and went back to Spain and forgot all about it. And then got a phone call from my son Sean and said, well, that song you did with Jarvis, yeah. I said, it's top 10. Oh, really? What was it called?
Walk
Getting
like a
Walk
Walk
Like a
like a
Panther.
panther.
Walk Like a Panther, yeah. Yeah, but it's yeah, I didn't get back because I was too busy touring. I couldn't get back to do a tour, so that was it. So when Amarillo, when Peter Kay brought the Amarillo thing out, that got me back, got my wife back. We were staying in hotels and touring, and suddenly my kids were having grandkids and all this. And Sue said, "Shall we move back because we can see more of our kids, and now our grandkids which are being born." So I said, yes. So that's what we did. We moved back to the UK.
Well, I mean, one thing I do want to say is my parents are big fans, and they've actually watched you live, and they said to me that the show that you put on was incredible. I mean, my dad actually waited after a show just to have a photo with you, but he said the show you put on was just incredible. So, is that something that you love, the live shows, connecting with an audience and going out there and just putting on a show?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'm doing yours again. July 30th. I'm doing the App Fest in Tewkesbury.
Wow.
Yes. Because I did that. It was a last minute thing because the original top of the bill she pulled out. She, for whatever reason, I don't know. I had to suddenly get my band together and do it. It went down an absolute storm, the App Fest. So they booked me back next July on 30th. So I'm looking forward to that because it was a really good day out.
Well, I'm going to make sure I come along to watch that, because I've heard everyone that goes to watch the show just leaves with a smile on their face, because you do put on a show. You've got real music. I love music from kind of back in the day with real instruments. Not all done on a computer, just something more authentic, and that's what you
Yeah.
deliver on the show.
Oh, live music, yeah. Live band, yeah. Absolutely. I love it.
So what's next for you now? Because I know that obviously you've got a free CD compilation album out, which is just incredible, and you've got your new Christmas song on there as well. It's getting close to Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, 70 songs. 70 songs. I can't believe it. 70 songs on these 3 albums. And I was shocked. I said, really? Yeah, and I went down to Morrison's, which is a shop not far from where I live. And I went in there and I said, they said, "Oh, we've got your album in." I said, "Really?" "Yeah, we've got it on a lost leader, they call it." I said, "Look, what's that mean?" I said, "They say we do it cheap and it gets people in to buy it, but they always buy other stuff." And so I bought this triple album. It was a fiver in Morrison's. I said, "A lost leader." Yes, it certainly was. So anyway, so they said they're just selling it, selling it, selling it. It's going like the clappers. Yeah.
What, you know, when the album was, or you said you bought a copy yourself, were there times when you looked at the track listing and kind of thought, I didn't even remember that I recorded that track, or was there any kind of shocks on there?
Absolutely. When, as you said, I looked at the list and I went, "Good God, that's going back to 1967, 68, 69. I can't remember doing that song. Where did I do it?" And my son's saying, "Oh, you did that one in that studio. You did that one in that studio." And I thought, "Oh, really?" And they're there. They've brought back memories for me too.
Well, of course, I mentioned the new Christmas track. It's getting close to Christmas. It's such a
Yeah,
feel-good song as well,
yeah,
especially with what we've had going on in the last couple of years. It really is a
yeah.
feel-good song. We
Yeah, it
that's
was my son gave it to me. He brought it to me. He says, "Look, Dad," he says, "I've got this song." He says, like the three writers. He says, "Well, I know." Actually, Henry Priestman, who was one of the writers, he was a member of the Christians. You know, the band the
yes.
Christians. He was in the Christians. He also wrote some music for Dreamboats and Petticoats, the musical, which I actually did. I did the West End. I did 3 months in the West End in that musical. And I had an absolutely fantastic time a few years ago. So he was one of the writers. So that's how I got the song, Getting Close to Christmas. I just think it's a great song. It's a family song, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. It's all about family.
And it's had a good reaction. I mean, I looked on social media and online, and it has had such a great reaction. But I want to ask, what's kind of next for you now going forward in 2023? Are there any
Oh,
upcoming plans you can tell us about?
it's a big year for me next year. I hope I live through it. my it's my it's my 80th birthday in April. I'm doing, oh God, I'm doing in County Mayo. I'm doing I'm the Grand Master at the St Patrick's Day Parade in March. In March, I've got two new albums coming out, which I'm making two new albums in Nashville. I've got to go over there for a few weeks, and I'm just touring. That they're just piling. What work is absolutely piling in. So I'm going to have a very, very busy 80th birthday year. So that's it. I've got to keep myself fit and get through it.
Would you know, for me, this has genuinely been such an honor to speak to somebody that's been in the industry for 6 decades and done as much as yourself, and to hear that actually 2023 is going to be one of the busiest years for you is just incredible, because your voice is timeless. It really is. And I'm definitely going to be coming to see you in Tewkesbury because it's local to us here in
Yeah,
Cheltenham.
that's great. I've still got the voice.
You
My
definitely
knees are
have.
not as my knees are not as good, which affects my golf.
But honestly, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, mate. Thanks for ringing.
Thank
Cheers.
you.